If you love intense mafia romance stories filled with suspense, power, and unexpected love, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and press the bell icon so you never miss a new story. It was almost midnight when Ayesha sat alone on the edge of her bed, the glow of her phone lighting up her tired face. New York never really slept, but her tiny apartment felt painfully quiet. Her heart was still racing from the date she had just returned from, a date that didn't sit right with her no matter how hard she tried to convince herself otherwise. The man had been charming on the surface, well-dressed, confident, and polite, but there was something in his eyes that made her skin crawl. A cold awareness. A darkness he tried too hard to hide. She unlocked her phone and quickly typed a message to her best friend, Sarah, her fingers moving faster than her thoughts. Something feels off. The guy the first told you about, he asked too many questions. If I don't text you by morning, please check on me. Without double-checking the number, she hit send and tossed the phone onto the bed, letting out a shaky breath. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe this was just anxiety talking. She stood up, walked to the window, and stared at the city lights below, trying to calm herself. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up, expecting Sarah's usual comforting reply. Instead, the message on the screen made her blood run cold. Wrong number. But that message wasn't meant to be ignored. Her stomach dropped. Ayesha frowned, rereading the text again and again. Wrong number. Embarrassment hit first, then unease. She typed back quickly. I'm sorry. That message wasn't meant for you. The reply came almost instantly. I know, but now it's reached me. Her fingers trembled. Something about the tone, calm, controlled, unreadable, sent a chill down her spine. She considered blocking the number, but before she could, another message appeared. You're not wrong to be afraid. Her heart began to pound. Who is this? She typed, her breath shallow. There was a pause this time. Long enough for fear to bloom fully in her chest. Then the phone buzzed again. My name is Adrian Rossi. Ayesha froze. The name echoed in her mind like a warning siren. Adrian Rossi wasn't just a man, you didn't hear his name without whispers following. Business tycoon by day, criminal mastermind by night. The man news articles never directly accused, but everyone feared. The mafia boss of the East Coast. Her hands felt numb. This isn't funny, she typed. Please stop. The response was immediate. I don't joke. And I don't text strangers without a reason. She swallowed hard, fear crawling up her throat. Then why are you texting me? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Because the man you went on a date with tonight works for my enemy. Ayesha's chest tightened. Her memories replayed, the questions, the probing, the way he'd watched her like he was memorizing her face. You're lying, she typed, though doubt had already taken root. I'm not, Adrian replied. And if you value your life, you won't leave your apartment tonight. She stared at the screen, torn between disbelief and instinct. Why would you warn me? The reply came slower this time, deliberate. Because you sent a message meant for help. And because once I know something, I don't ignore it. Her breathing steadied just a little. There was fear, yes, but also something else. Protection. Authority. What do you want from me? She asked. The answer was chillingly simple. Nothing. Not yet. Ayesha locked her door, double-checked the windows, and sat back on her bed, phone clutched tightly in her hand. One wrong text. One accidental message. And somehow, her quiet life had crossed paths with the most dangerous man in the city. And somewhere high above New York, Adrian Rossi looked at his phone, a faint, unreadable expression on his face. He didn't believe in coincidences. And Ayesha, she had just become one. Ayesha barely slept that night. Every small sound, the hum of the refrigerator, footsteps in the hallway, the distant siren outside, felt louder than it should have. She kept her phone on the bed beside her, screen facing up, as if it might suddenly reveal answers just by lighting up. Adrian Rossi hadn't sent another message after his last warning, but his silence was somehow more unsettling than his words. Morning light finally crept through the curtains, painting the room in soft gray and gold. Ayesha sat up slowly, rubbing her tired eyes. Part of her wanted to believe the entire thing had been a strange dream fueled by fear and overthinking. But when she unlocked her phone, Adrian's messages were still there, cold, calm, undeniable. She showered, dressed for work, and stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Her reflection looked the same, yet everything felt different. Her life had been simple until yesterday. Now it felt like invisible eyes were watching her from the shadows. Her phone buzzed again. Her breath caught as she picked it up. Good morning, Ayesha. Her heart skipped. How do you know my name? She typed back, already knowing the answer. Because I don't speak without knowing who I'm speaking to, Adrian replied. Relax. I haven't shared your information with anyone. That didn't fully calm her nerves. You shouldn't be this calm, she wrote. You scared me last night. A pause. Then, fear keeps people alive. She exhaled slowly, gripping the phone tighter. You said the man I went on a date with works for your enemy. What does that have to do with me? This time, the reply took longer. Minutes passed. Ayesha imagined Adrian somewhere high above the city, surrounded by glass walls and armed men, considering how much truth to give her. Finally, the message arrived. You were not the target. You were the access. Her stomach twisted. Access to what? To me, Adrian answered. To my businesses. To my weaknesses. Ayesha felt a chill run through her body. I don't know anything about you. I'm just a normal girl. That's exactly why you were chosen, he replied. She sat down on the edge of the bed, trying to steady herself. So what happens now? Now, Adrian typed, you do nothing differently. You go to work. You live your life. And you let me handle the danger. Her jaw tightened. I didn't ask to be part of your world. The response was immediate. Neither did I ask for yours to collide with mine. There was something honest in that line, no apology, no softness, just truth. Ayesha hesitated, then typed the question burning in her mind. Why help me at all? You don't know me. For the first time since their conversation began, Adrian's reply wasn't sharp. Because when I was younger, he wrote, no one warned the people I cared about. And they paid the price. She stared at the screen, surprised by the crack in his armor. So this is guilt? She asked. This is control, he answered. Guilt comes later. Ayesha went to work that day, but her focus was shattered. Every stranger felt suspicious. Every male coworker looked different now, as if she were seeing hidden layers beneath ordinary faces. Around noon, her phone vibrated again. You're being watched, Adrian texted. Her heart slammed into her ribs. By who? Not closely, he replied. Yet. Don't panic. Easy for him to say. How do you even know? Because I always know, he responded. That afternoon, as Ayesha left her office building, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted dark. Her pulse spiked. She slowed her steps, pretending to check her phone. Is that your car? She typed. Yes, Adrian replied. You're safe. She stopped walking. You sent someone to follow me. To protect you, he corrected. There's a difference. She felt anger spark through her fear. You don't get to control my life. The reply came instantly. I'm not controlling it. I'm preserving it. That night, Ayesha stood by her window again, watching the city glow below. Somewhere out there, Adrian Rossi was pulling strings she couldn't see, making decisions that affected her without asking permission. And yet, she was still alive. Still unharmed. Her phone buzzed one last time before bed. Get some sleep, Adrian texted. Tomorrow will be louder. She hesitated, then typed back. Why does it feel like this is just the beginning? His answer was simple. Final. Because it is. Ayesha lay back on her bed, heart pounding, mind racing. She didn't know what scared her more, the enemies Adrian had warned her about, or the fact that the most dangerous man in the city had decided she was worth protecting. And once Adrian Rossi decided something, there was no turning back. The next morning arrived with a tension Ayesha could almost taste. The city outside her window moved like always, horns blaring, people rushing, coffee cups in hand, but for her, everything felt sharpened, louder, closer to the edge. Adrian's warning echoed in her mind, tomorrow will be louder. He wasn't wrong. Her phone buzzed before she even finished brushing her hair. You're taking a different route to work today, Adrian texted. Ayesha sighed, irritation mixing with fear. You don't get to decide that, she replied. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally. You're right, Adrian wrote. You get to decide. I get to keep you alive. She stared at the message longer than she wanted to admit. Against her better judgment, she typed back. Fine. Which route? The response was immediate, as if he'd been waiting. The one with less risk. She followed his instructions, heart racing the entire ride. Nothing happened. No shadowy figures. No sudden danger. And that almost made it worse. It meant whatever threat existed was patient. At work, her manager called her into the office just before lunch. There's a man here asking for you, he said casually. Says it's important. Ayesha's blood ran cold. What does he look like? She asked. Tall. Well-dressed. Very polite, her manager replied. Didn't give a name. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Do not go with him, Adrian texted. Tell your manager you're busy. Her fingers shook as she typed back. You're sure? I don't guess, Adrian replied. She took a deep breath and turned back to her manager. I'm sorry, she said, forcing a smile. I can't meet anyone right now. The man left 10 minutes later. Ayesha didn't breathe normally again until her phone buzzed. Good choice, Adrian wrote. That was him, wasn't it? She asked. Yes, Adrian answered. And that means things are accelerating. That evening, Ayesha didn't go straight home. She walked instead, trying to clear her head, though she knew someone was always watching now, Adrian's people, unseen but present. For the first time, curiosity began to push past her fear. What exactly do you do? She texted suddenly. There was a longer pause than usual. I run empires, Adrian finally replied. Some legal, some not. She stopped walking. Why tell me that? Because lies complicate things, he answered. And we're past simple. The word we lingered in her mind longer than it should have. That night, Adrian did something unexpected. I want to meet you, he texted. Her heart slammed into her ribs. No, she replied instantly. That's not safe. It's safer than you think, he responded. Public place. Controlled environment. She hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no. And yet, another part of her, the part tired of being afraid, wanted answers. Why? She asked. Because trust can't grow through a screen, Adrian replied. And this situation requires trust. After a long minute, she typed one word. Where? The cafe was quiet, elegant, tucked away on a street tourists rarely noticed. Ayesha arrived early, choosing a table near the window. Her pulse hammered in her ears as the minutes passed. Then the door opened. Adrian Rossi didn't look like the monster she had imagined. He was tall, yes, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His face was calm, controlled, dangerously handsome, but his eyes were what made her breath hitch. Dark, sharp, watching everything. Their gazes locked. He walked toward her slowly, as if the world bent slightly around his presence. When he reached her table, he didn't sit right away. Ayesha, he said, his voice low, steady. Hearing her name aloud from him sent a shiver through her. Adrian, she replied. He sat down across from her, placing his phone on the table between them. You're braver than I expected, he said. She lifted her chin. I'm tired of being scared. Something unreadable crossed his face. Respect, maybe. Or something more dangerous. They talked for nearly an hour. About nothing, and everything. He didn't tell her details about his criminal world, but he didn't hide what he was either. He listened when she spoke, really listened, his attention absolute. You shouldn't be involved in this, she finally said quietly. Adrian leaned back slightly. You're right, he replied. But you already are, she swallowed. And if I want out? His gaze softened, just a fraction. Then I'll make sure you get out alive. That night, as Adrian watched Ayesha walk safely back to her building, a realization settled deep in his chest, one he hadn't felt in years. Protecting her was no longer just strategy. And Ayesha, standing at her window, realized something too. The most dangerous man in her world was no longer just a threat. He was becoming the only one she trusted. Ayesha woke up with the uneasy feeling that something had shifted overnight. The city outside her window looked the same, but her instincts told her otherwise. Meeting Adrian Rossi had changed the balance, inside her, and around her. Once you met a man like him, you didn't go back to pretending the world was harmless. Her phone buzzed before she could overthink it. You okay? Adrian texted. She hesitated, then replied honestly. I don't know. A few seconds passed. Fair answer, he wrote. Stay inside this morning. I'll send a car. Her jaw tightened. I can take the subway like everyone else. Not today, Adrian replied. This isn't a suggestion. She almost argued, but then a sharp knock echoed through her apartment door. Ayesha froze. Another knock. Firmer this time. Her phone buzzed again. That's my driver. Open the door. She swallowed and moved slowly, checking the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood outside, expression neutral, posture alert. She unlocked the door with trembling hands. Miss Khan, he said politely. Mr. Rossi sent me. The ride through the city was quiet, tense. The car didn't take her to work. Where are we going? She finally asked. Safe place, the driver replied. Temporary. Her phone buzzed. You're not going to the office today, Adrian texted. Someone tried to access your employee records this morning. Her chest tightened. Who? The same people who sent the man yesterday, he answered. They're getting careless. The car pulled into a private garage beneath a high-rise she'd never noticed before. Inside, the elevator rose silently to the top floor. When the doors opened, Adrian was waiting. He looked different today, no suit jacket, sleeves rolled up, jaw tense. The moment he saw her, his shoulders eased slightly, like he'd been holding his breath. You shouldn't have had to deal with that, he said. Ayesha crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. You said I wasn't the target. I said you were access, Adrian replied. That hasn't changed. He led her into the penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the room, the city stretching endlessly below. It was beautiful, and intimidating. Sit, he said gently. She did. This is where I draw the line, Ayesha said, her voice firm despite the fear humming beneath it. I won't be moved around like a chess piece. Adrian met her gaze. Then you need to understand the board. He explained without softening the truth. His rival wanted leverage, someone close enough, normal enough, to get information without raising alarms. Ayesha had been chosen by accident, then kept in place by curiosity. You texting me ruined their plan, Adrian said. That made you dangerous to them. And valuable to you, she asked. He didn't dodge it. Yes. Silence settled between them. So what happens now? Ayesha asked quietly. Now, Adrian said, I protect you openly. And that has a cost. She looked up. What cost? You won't be invisible anymore, he replied. My enemies will know you matter. Fear flared in her chest. I never asked to matter to someone like you. Adrian's voice softened. Neither did I. Hours passed in uneasy calm. His security team moved efficiently, quietly. Ayesha watched Adrian from a distance, the way people deferred to him, the way he never raised his voice yet commanded the room. By evening, exhaustion caught up with her. You can stay here tonight, Adrian said. Guest room. Guarded. She nodded, too tired to argue. Later, unable to sleep, she wandered back into the main room. Adrian stood by the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. Do you ever regret this life? She asked softly. He didn't turn. Regret implies choice, he said. I chose survival. She stepped closer. And, now, he looked at her then. Really looked. Now things are complicated. The moment stretched. There was tension, but also understanding. Something unspoken. Suddenly, Adrian's phone rang. His expression hardened instantly. Talk, he said. A voice shouted through the speaker. Adrian's jaw clenched. They made a move, he said after hanging up. Tonight. Ayesha's heart raced. Against you. No, Adrian said, eyes darkening. Against us. Within minutes, the penthouse shifted from calm to controlled chaos. Guards moved into position. Lights dimmed. Screens came alive with camera feeds. Adrian turned to her. Stay here, no matter what you hear. She grabbed his arm. Don't lie to me. How bad is it? He met her gaze steadily. They want to see if I'll trade. Trade what? She whispered. You, he answered honestly. Fear hit her like ice water. But they won't get the chance, Adrian continued, voice steel. Because I don't trade people. A distant sound echoed, sirens, maybe. Or something worse. Ayesha realized then the true price of protection. Being under Adrian Rossi's guard didn't just mean safety. It meant standing in the direct line of fire. And as she watched him turn back to his screens, commanding an invisible war with calm authority, one truth settled deep in her chest. Walking away now might save her heart. But staying would change her life forever. The first explosion wasn't loud. It was distant, muted, more like a pressure wave than a sound. The penthouse lights flickered once, then steadied. Ayesha's breath caught in her throat as every screen around Adrian updated at the same time, red indicators blooming like warning signs across a digital map of the city. Stay behind me, Adrian said calmly, already moving. Ayesha obeyed, heart hammering. Guards flowed into the room with practiced precision, earpieces murmuring, hands never far from concealed weapons. The glass walls that made the penthouse breathtaking now felt like a liability. Talk to me, Adrian said into his calm. Locations. Garage diversion neutralized, a voice replied. Secondary team approaching from the west. No visual on the primary. Adrian's jaw tightened. They're probing, he said quietly, more to himself than to Ayesha. They want to see how I react. Ayesha swallowed. This is about me. Yes, Adrian said. And no, he glanced at her. It's about what I refuse to become. Another tremor rippled through the building. Somewhere below, alarms wailed. Adrian guided Ayesha into a smaller interior room, windowless, reinforced, humming softly with power. You'll be safer here, he said. She grabbed his wrist. Don't shut me out. He met her gaze, something fierce and protective burning there. I'm not, he said. I'm keeping you alive. The door sealed with a heavy click. Screens inside the room displayed feeds from cameras across the property. Ayesha watched shadows move in alleys, watched cars shift positions like pieces on a board. It felt unreal, like a movie she hadn't agreed to star in. Minutes stretched. Then Adrian's phone buzzed. He read the message once, then again. The air around him seemed to harden. They want proof, he said quietly. Proof of what? Ayesha asked. That I'll bleed, he replied. Or bend. Her chest tightened. What does that mean for us? Adrian turned to face her fully. It means they'll try to scare you. As if summoned by his words, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Her hands shook as she opened the message. We know where you are. Tell Rossi to meet us alone. Ayesha's pulse roared in her ears. She looked up at Adrian. They messaged me. I expected that, he said. Don't respond. Another message arrived, this one with a photo, her building, taken earlier that day. A red circle marked her apartment window. Fear flared hot and sharp. They were watching me before tonight. Yes, Adrian said, voice steady. But not close enough. She forced herself to breathe. They want you alone. Adrian's expression didn't change. They won't get me. Because you won't go. She asked. Because I'll go on my terms, he replied. Her heart dropped. You can't. I can, he said softly. And I will. Ayesha stepped closer, anger pushing past fear. You said you don't trade people. I don't, Adrian said. I end threats. The words were simple, absolute, terrifying. Then what am I supposed to do? She asked, voice breaking despite her effort to keep it steady. Trust me, he said. Silence fell between them, heavy, charged. Finally, Ayesha nodded. I do, she said, surprising herself with how true it felt. Adrian's hand hovered, then settled briefly at her shoulder. A grounding touch. Good. He turned back to his team, issuing rapid instructions. Routes, timings, contingencies. Everything moved with lethal efficiency. Within minutes, Adrian was gone. The room felt emptier without him. Ayesha sat, eyes glued to the screens, watching the city rearrange itself around a single man. Cars peeled away. Lights shifted. Sirens changed direction. Somewhere out there, Adrian Rossi was walking into a trap, one he believed he could close from the inside. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He won't choose you over power. Ayesha typed back before fear could stop her. You don't know him. 3 dots appeared. Then, no one knows him. She stared at the message. I do, she whispered. On the screens, a dark sedan slid into a warehouse district. Adrian stepped out alone, coat collar turned up against the wind. The camera angle shifted, grainy and distant. Adrian, Ayesha breathed. Her phone buzzed, this time, his name. I'm here, he said calmly. Please be careful, she said, voice barely steady. A pause. I always am. Minutes passed like hours. Ayesha watched shadows move, men emerge, weapons glint under harsh lights. Words were exchanged she couldn't hear. Then movement, fast, chaotic. The feed cut. Ayesha's heart slammed. No, no, no. She jumped up, pacing, fighting the urge to scream. The room's door opened suddenly. A guard stepped in. He's alive, the guard said. And it's over. Relief crashed through her so hard she had to sit down. An hour later, Adrian returned. There was blood on his knuckles, not his. A small cut at his temple. His eyes were sharp, alive, and burning with something like resolve. They won't try again, he said. Ayesha stood, crossing the room in 2 steps. You promised. I kept it, he replied. You're safe. She looked at him, really looked. The danger, the control, the weight he carried. And the choice he'd made. Why me? She asked quietly. Adrian exhaled. Because you remind me of who I was before this city taught me to be ruthless. Her chest tightened. And what happens now? He met her gaze. Now we decide whether you walk away, or stand with me. The city outside resumed its hum, unaware of how close it had come to breaking. And in the quiet after the storm, Ayesha realized something irreversible had happened. She wasn't just under Adrian Rossi's protection anymore. She was part of his world. The morning after the attack, the city felt deceptively calm. Ayesha sat by her window, watching taxis weave through the streets, unaware that just hours ago, a storm had passed across its heart. Her phone lay on the table beside her, silent. For the first time in days, Adrian hadn't texted her. The silence was heavier than any warning. Her mind replayed the events of the previous night, the warehouse, the shadows, the chaos. How he had walked into danger without hesitation. How he had returned unscathed, yet changed. And most of all, how she had watched helplessly, feeling both fear and something dangerously close to admiration. Her phone vibrated suddenly. She almost jumped. Meet me at the top floor. 10 minutes. Ayesha frowned. The text wasn't a warning, nor a command, it was an invitation. She hesitated. 10 minutes later, she found herself stepping into the elevator of the high-rise where Adrian's office was located. The doors opened to a spacious room, dimly lit, overlooking the city skyline. He was already there, leaning against the glass wall, arms crossed. You're late, he said, though his tone was more amused than angry. I had to think, she replied. Adrian's gaze softened slightly. Do you trust me? Ayesha swallowed. She did, but the word felt heavy. I want to. But I don't understand everything yet. You don't need to, he said. You need to survive. Understanding comes later. She crossed her arms, studying him. There was a strange tension in the air, not danger exactly, but something that made the space between them feel electrified. Adrian stepped closer. You realize, he said quietly, that once you choose to be here, the line between safety and risk is gone. I know, Ayesha said, her voice steadier than she felt. He nodded, as if expecting her answer. Then, without another word, he guided her to the window, where the city stretched endlessly below them. Look, he said, out there, people are waiting for mistakes. Every wrong move, every misstep could cost someone their life. Mine, yours, theirs. Ayesha's gaze followed his. She felt the weight of it, the magnitude of his world. How do you do it? She asked quietly. Adrian's eyes darkened. I've had to learn. Control, strategy, patience, and sacrifice. You give up normal life the moment you step into this world. She looked at him, noticing how the edges of his face seemed sharper now, hardened by responsibility. There was something about him that made the air thick, heavy with unspoken truths. Why me? She asked suddenly. He froze for a moment. Because you're alive. Because you care. Because unlike anyone else I've known in years, you see me, not just the legend. Her heart skipped. She looked away, out at the city. The truth in his words was undeniable, and terrifying. Adrian's hand brushed against hers, almost accidental. Ayesha's stomach tightened. She turned to him, meeting his gaze, and saw something there she hadn't expected: vulnerability. Do you know what it means to care in my world? He asked softly. It's dangerous. For both of us. I don't care, she whispered, almost before she realized it. He blinked, a shadow of a smile crossing his face. Brave, or reckless? A tense silence followed. Then, abruptly, a sharp sound from outside the office, the faint click of the elevator. Both of them stiffened. Go, Adrian said quietly. Now, Ayesha's instincts screamed, but she didn't move fast enough before the door opened, revealing a tall man in a dark suit. His expression was neutral, but his presence radiated control and threat. Adrian stepped in front of her. State your business, he said calmly, voice low but commanding. The man tilted his head. I'm a friend of a friend, he said smoothly. I come with a warning. He knows where she is. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Who? You know him, the man said. The one from the warehouse last night. Ayesha's stomach dropped. What does he want now? Adrian's expression hardened. To test me. To see how far I'll go. The man nodded. He's clever. And he knows you're valuable. Adrian's gaze returned to Ayesha. Are you okay? She swallowed. Yes. But this feels like it's never going to stop. He stepped closer. It won't. That's why you need to decide, are you standing with me? Or are you stepping back into the world that will always try to destroy you? Her heart raced. She knew the answer already. I'm standing with you, she said. He nodded, eyes sharp and approving. Good. Because once you make that choice, there's no going back. The man in the suit nodded to Adrian and left, disappearing as suddenly as he had appeared. Adrian turned back to Ayesha. Do you understand? She nodded. I do. I'm not afraid anymore. He studied her for a moment. Good. Because fear is what they feed on. Courage, that's what keeps us alive. The rest of the day passed in a tense blur. Adrian's team moved with calculated precision, intercepting threats before they could reach her. Every moment was a lesson in control, patience, and strategy. And through it all, Ayesha felt a strange sense of belonging, like she was finally part of something that mattered, even if it scared her. That night, Adrian escorted her back to her apartment. The streets were quiet, a deceptive calm after the chaos of the day. You know, he said quietly, this is only the beginning. They'll test us again. And again. Ayesha looked up at him, meeting his gaze steadily. Then we'll face it. Together. He paused, studying her, before letting a small, almost imperceptible smile cross his face. Together, he echoed. As she stepped into her apartment, the city skyline glowing behind her, Ayesha realized something profound. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning to live within the storm. And at the heart of that storm was Adrian Rossi, dangerous, unyielding, and now undeniably part of her world. For the first time, fear and trust didn't feel like opposites. They felt intertwined. And Ayesha knew that once she had stepped this far, she could never turn back. The line between safety and danger, between control and surrender, had blurred. And she was ready to walk it. The following morning, Ayesha woke to a strange combination of exhaustion and anticipation. The city outside her window had regained its ordinary rhythm, taxis honking, people bustling, coffee shops opening for the early crowd. But inside, the weight of the past week lingered, thick and palpable. She knew Adrian Rossi's world was never calm, never predictable. And yet, after everything, a part of her felt ready. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Breakfast. My place. Now. She hesitated, her stomach tightening. She knew what that meant. Adrian wanted her presence, not because of danger, but because of control. And somewhere in her chest, a dangerous thrill stirred. An hour later, she arrived at his penthouse. The door opened before she could knock, revealing Adrian, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark trousers, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The morning sunlight highlighted his sharp features, and for a moment, she forgot fear entirely. "Good morning," he said, voice smooth, steady. "Coffee or tea?" "Coffee," she replied automatically, though her eyes couldn't leave him. He handed her a cup, and she took it, feeling the heat seep into her palms. The city stretched below them, quiet, almost serene compared to the chaos of the past few days. "You slept?" he asked. "Some," she said. "It's hard to sleep knowing you're out there handling things I can't even imagine." Adrian's eyes softened. "It's not easy, but I promised I'd keep you safe. And I meant it." Ayesha set her cup down, studying him. "Do you ever get tired?" He leaned against the counter, gaze distant. "Tired, yes, but not afraid. Fear is what breaks people, not work." Her mind flashed to the warehouse, to the unknown number that had threatened her, to the moments she'd felt completely powerless. "And what about me? You made me part of this." He stepped closer, eyes locking on hers. "You chose to be part of it." She frowned. "I didn't know what I was choosing." "Choices have a way of defining us," he said. "You're learning fast." Ayesha's heart raced. There was a magnetic pull between them she could no longer ignore. The fear that had defined the last week mingled with an unfamiliar desire. She tried to push it down, telling herself this was dangerous. But Adrian Rossi had never been about caution. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression sharpening immediately. "They're moving," he said quietly. "Another attempt. Not on you directly, yet." Her stomach dropped. "How do you always know?" "I anticipate," he said. "Predict patterns. Protect what matters." The words settled around her like a shield, and yet, a warning. He moved to a control panel, his fingers flying over screens and buttons. Ayesha watched, fascinated. Every decision precise, calculated, lethal. She realized how much she had underestimated him. The man she had feared, the man she had admired from a distance, was now the one keeping her alive. Minutes passed, then Adrian turned to her. "I have to leave," he said. "Stay here. No one enters." She wanted to argue, to insist on going with him, but something in his gaze stopped her. "Okay," she said softly. He nodded, then leaned closer, just enough that she could feel the heat from his body. "Be careful," he whispered. Then he left. The apartment felt emptier instantly. She couldn't sit still. The city outside seemed calm, but she knew the storm was always lurking. She moved to the window, staring down at the streets below, wishing she could be part of his world in a way that wasn't terrifying. Hours passed. Then a knock at the door. She froze, heart hammering. "No one," she reminded herself. Another knock. Louder. Insistent. She glanced at her phone. No messages. Her hands shook as she approached the door. Slowly, she opened it a crack. A man in a dark suit stood there. "Delivery," he said, voice neutral. A briefcase in hand. Something in the way he moved made her freeze. She stepped back, phone in hand. Before she could react, Adrian's voice came from behind her, low and commanding. "Step aside." He appeared as if from the shadows, silent and unstoppable. In one fluid motion, he disarmed the tension in the room. The man with the briefcase disappeared before she even realized he was there. Adrian turned to her, expression unreadable. "Do you understand now?" "Understand what?" she whispered. "That danger is constant. But so is my presence," he said. "And that includes the risks you can't see." Her chest tightened. I think I do." He stepped closer, his eyes locking on hers. The air between them was charged, heavy with unspoken emotion. "You've changed," he said softly. "The fear is still there, but it's not controlling you anymore." She realized she was shaking, not from fear, but anticipation. Desire. Something dangerous, unexplainable. "Adrian," she started, but he silenced her with a look. "Don't say anything," he murmured. "Not yet." And yet, the pull between them was undeniable. Their worlds, dangerous, chaotic, impossible, had collided. And in that collision, something new had been born. Trust, and more. The next moments were a blur of proximity, a tension that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with them. Adrian leaned closer, lips barely brushing hers, eyes searching, measuring. Ayesha's breath caught. She wanted to step back, but her body betrayed her, leaning in instinctively. But a sudden alert on his phone broke the moment. Adrian's expression hardened. He stepped back, tone crisp and commanding. "Always remember," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "We can't forget why we're here. Danger is always first." Ayesha nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand." He studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, he said softly, "Stay close. Always." And with that, he left, moving into the city that never slept, a predator among shadows, a protector of the one he had chosen. Alone, Ayesha realized the truth of the past week. She was no longer an outsider. She had crossed the line into a world where danger and desire intertwined, where trust was earned in the shadows, and where one man's obsession with protection could consume both their lives. She was part of Adrian Rossi's world now. Whether she was ready or not, there was no going back. And as the city breathed below her, a new determination settled in her chest. She would survive, she would trust, and she would stand by him, whatever came next. The line between fear and passion, danger and protection, had blurred. And Ayesha knew one thing with certainty: Adrian Rossi would never let anything, or anyone, take her away.